From the moment I invented the TMD, Demichev wanted it. He demanded I hand it over for him to use in his research. When I refused, he had me and everyone else who wouldn't cooperate labeled as traitors. Demichev was obsessed with the power and possibilities of the Singularity. But a few months after it came online, there was a terrible accident. The Singularity exploded, killing thousands instantly. But they were the lucky ones. Those who survived were left to a fate worse than death.
Some shooters are about deep philosophical questions and compelling stories and characters, but others are like Singularity. In those kinds of shooters, you blast everything that moves and worry about the consequences later. This sci-fi first-person shooter can feel a little old, but boy is it ever fun. You get cool weapons to shoot, neat powers to play with, and a few cool boss fights to cleanse your palate. And when you aren't blasting nasty mutants to smithereens in the campaign, you're shooting them up in multiplayer, or even better, playing as one of them. Singularity is hardly the best looking shooter out there, and it's a little glitchy, but it's also really enjoyable and a bit cheesy in the good way. So grab a shotgun and start shooting. So the setup is all sorts of nutty. As Nate Renko, you're sent to investigate an island off the coast of Russia called Katorga 12. It seems the Soviets were up to some trouble back in the 1950s. Using a newly discovered element, they were poised to give the United States a run for world domination. But things didn't turn out so well, and it's up to you to change the course of history using a time manipulation device called the TMD. You jump back and forth from the present to the past, shooting hideous mutated things and using the TMD to take care of business. It's all kooky nonsense, but it's the kind of crazy shooter fans can get behind. Besides, this is Raven Software, the folks behind last year's Wolfenstein. And not only is Singularity crazier than that game, it's also better. A lot of the fun comes from your time manipulation powers. You can make enemy soldiers age in a second, turning them into dust. You can drop a big time bubble that slows down everything that comes inside it. You can let out a powerful shockwave to damage nearby enemies and pick up explosive barrels and throw them. Who needs a good reason for all this? It's super fun, and it gives firefights a lot of variety. The game does a great job of mixing things up and keeping the pace varied. Enemies react to different powers in different ways, and set-piece battles and bosses make things even more diverse. You also use these powers to solve puzzles. You slow down giant fans with your time bubble, and put crumbled staircases back together by reversing time, for example. A few of these puzzles are actually pretty clever, if not exactly challenging. The shooting action is really good. This is old school run and gun shooting with a few interesting weapons thrown into the mix. One great weapon lets you steer your bullet right into your target. The sniper rifle lets you slow down time, which leads to some fun moments. Most of the weapons are old standbys, but they feel good to shoot. Unfortunately, the visuals are also old school. This is not the best use of the Unreal 3 engine you've ever seen. Textures are low resolution and you won't be blown away by the simple lighting or the simple animations, but the moody art design and some campy voice acting set exactly the right tone. You might also notice the soldier AI as human enemies get confused when you flank, or they might take cover on the wrong side of a barrier and turn their backs to you. Some bugs may also get in the way. Animation glitches are common, but not too much of a worry. Others, like having a boss spawn outside of the play area and forcing a reload, that's a little bit more bothersome. But for the most part, the shooting is a breeze, and Singularity feels as you'd expect a well-made old-fashioned shooter to feel. The variety spills over into the multiplayer side of Singularity. There are only two modes here. One is an assault and defend type mode called Extermination, and the other is a team deathmatch variant called Creatures vs. Soldiers. Two modes doesn't sound like a lot, but these are actually interesting twists on the usual class-based warfare you see in other games. It's always a creature team versus a human team, but not only do you choose a class, you also select a few different perks to slot in. It's fun to play as a human, but it's even more fun to run around as a creature. As one class, you can simultaneously harm enemies and heal teammates by puking all over them. With another class, you can leap onto an enemy's head and take over his body. Matches are set up in such a way where you get to play as both human and creature, so things always stay fresh and interesting. Singularity's multiplayer isn't as wildly entertaining as, say, Bad Company 2, but it's different enough to carve out its own place on the shooter landscape. So let's say you like shooting guns in games. Let's say you like games that don't take themselves too seriously. In that case, Singularity is for you. It isn't going to set your world on fire and it's got its drawbacks, but it's so fun and so well paced that you probably won't pay much attention to them. Singularity isn't great because it's innovative. It's great because the solid mechanics and varied time manipulation abilities make it a blast to shoot dudes in the face.